Good morning, students. Today I will discuss on the title of Twelfth Night and also the significance of the subtitle of Twelfth Night. As I have already suggested, as I have already mentioned in my previous lecture, that whenever we are thinking or we think of regarding the naming of any particular play or regarding the naming or titling of any particular text, whether it's a short story or maybe a novel or maybe a poem or maybe a drama, the writer has to think or the author has to think about the procedures of titling. You know that whenever we are thinking of or we think of titling, significantly the titles are named according to number one, to the character that it plays the most important role, or maybe the theme of the play, that means what it signifies, or rather it may also signify something relating to the fundamental, symbolic significance, okay, that the title actually signifies. Literally, when we think of Shakespearean plays, specifically in case of tragedies, I have already suggested, as I've already mentioned in the previous lecture, that Shakespearean tragedies are named according to mostly according to the major characters. So that's why there is Hamlet, there is Macbeth, there is Twelfth Night, the Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, King Lear, etc. But whenever we think in terms of Shakespearean comedies, we find that fundamentally Shakespeare is focusing on, uh, say, the particular kind of, uh, the assimilative reasons, you see. That means what it signifies, or maybe to be specific, some symbolic orientations are always in work. Say, think about Shakespearean comedies in general. You will find there is, As You Like It, for example, you will find comedy of errors. You will find that the theme is also being relocated in this particular title. Think about A Midsummer Night's Dream. Somehow you will signify, or you will find that the particular drama is fundamentally focusing on the Midsummer Night's Dream. You can find the love thing is incorporation and something else. If you think of Merchant of Venice, then ultimately you will find that the merchandising is at the focus, and somehow the basic characteristic of merchandising, money mindedness, money and basic orientations, and somehow related racism and ultimately other things, these are come to the forefront whenever we think of the title of this particular play. Similarly, we'll find the title like Measure for Measure, Taming of the Shrew, etc., Much Ado About Nothing. There are multiple kinds of implications. But our concern here is Twelfth Night. Okay, so and the significance of the title. As I've already suggested, that somehow, if you go through the text of Twelfth Night, you will find probably never where any particular reference that can refer to the 12th night, to be specific. Okay, so why did Shakespeare choose the title Twelfth Night to be the title of this play? I have already mentioned this. Shakespeare chose the title Twelfth Night to commemorate the situation for which the play was written. I have already mentioned that in our last lecture, that Twelfth Night was the play that was performed on the 12th night after 25th December, that is 6th of January. On that particular day, that is 6th January, it is being considered that it is the day of Epiphanic festival. It is called Epiphany somehow. What is Epiphany? Epiphany is a Christian festival, and that we find that this festival actually inaugurates a kind of a juncture between the earthly and heavenly lives in general. So it has some religious undertone within this particular term. Shakespeare chose this particular title, Twelfth Night, just to make us remember the event or the situation or maybe the particular moment when this particular play was for the first time performed in front of the people. So that is why it is 12th night. But at the same time, we have to keep it in mind that whenever Shakespeare chose this particular title, that is 12th night, it is not simply to refer to the night, rather, it has its association with the fundamental festive orientation. That means, uh, whenever we will deal with the particular implication of music, that is the role of music and its significance to the play, we have to find its link to the title itself. What I'm trying to suggest here, it is, that it is a kind of festive comedy. Okay, and along with festive comedy, there are multiple kinds of basic orientations of uh, the theories, the theory of carnivalesque by Mikhail Bakhtin, the famous Russian formalist. I'll come to that later. uh, what I'm trying to suggest here, it is, fundamentally, whenever we think of Twelfth Night or the title of Twelfth Night, the first thing that comes to our mind, that is the Epiphany Festival, when Twelfth Night was first time to be performed. And during this particular festival, you know that there are ample provisions of music, because, as I've already suggested in my last lecture, the Shakespeare had to think about the groundlings, the one penny entranced people, who are mostly Shakespeare's audiences, you see. And somehow, as it is a religious festival, so the people were engaged in participating such kind of performances. Okay, so the play must carry a kind of mirth and jollity within. The play must carry some kind of, you say, uh, the kind of music and musicality, the kind of songs that have to be performed within this play. And this mirth and jollity is obviously merrymaking, mirth, and ample provisions of drinking, and people free from the obligatory principles of the society. All these things come with it. Along with Twelfth Night, actually, we can get the characters, a set of characters being propounded with such mirth and jollity. I will come to it later when I will discuss with the subtitle of this play. Now, what is the subtitle of the play? If you go through the text, you will find that the title of the subtitle of the text, or maybe the alternative title of the text, is uh, what you will. What does it mean? There are ample references, ample critical responses regarding the title or subtitle of this particular play. When we think of the subtitle of the play, we find that what you will, one particular group of critics, they consider that is what you will are actually referring to that it is the reader's choice or maybe the audience's choice. That means Shakespeare doesn't provide any particular title to this play apart from 12th night, because it is, as I mentioned just now, that it is a kind of a commemorative title, okay, which make you remember that it was the 12th night after 25th of December, that is 6th of January, when the play was for the first time performed in front of the people, in front of the king. Again, the second title, that is called the alternative title of the subtitle of this text, you will find that it actually signifies that Shakespeare doesn't want to give a proper title to this text. It is what you will. That means you may think what you will. You may choose any title for this text, what you will. That means it is up to you. You can choose any particular title, you can choose any particular subtitle with it. But it is one particular response, you see, that it is not everything. Again, another thing that comes to our mind whenever we think of the subtitle or alternative title of this text, as I've just mentioned, the think about the festivals, you see. Whenever you will think of any society, you will find the society does have a kind of a pyramidal structure. You know what is pyramidal structure? It is just like a pyramid. It's a it is called the hierarchy of the society. Yes, it is the hierarchy of the society. because at the top position, it's a monarchy, you see, and the king is at the apex. The king is at the top, and along with the king, that means, you know, just after the king, there are some nobles and the noble personages who are belonging to the upper strata of society. Then you will find, along with the nobles, there are the aristocrats, right? Along with the aristocrats, you will find some people who are directly or indirectly related to the families of the kings or maybe the households. And then you will find there are other professionals, and there are also the hierarchies so far as the professions are concerned. So it's a kind of a societal structure. It's called the pyramidal structure of the society that is as the basis of any particular monarchical society. So it is not simply in the monarchical society. Rather, we can find in the typical federal structure of our society, this is the same thing is in a corporation. You cannot negate the hierarchical positions within the society. There is at the top, there is the most powerful persons, and at the lower base, the proletariat class. That means the persons who belonging to nothing, right? And economy is at the basis, and economy is selecting kind of a differences between the people in general. So somehow what I'm trying to suggest here, that whenever you are thinking in terms of the society, in terms of the pyramidal structure of the society, you will find that there is an obvious obligatory principles. There are some do's and don'ts, what you can do, what you cannot do, and there are the don'ts, obviously, that you shouldn't follow somehow. And this kind of the pyramidal structure that I mentioned just now, and the differentiations that it makes, it cannot be blurred. It cannot be made blurred until or unless there is something superficial to be observant. Say, in any particular festival, okay, you will find that the festivals that have been associated with the 12th night and other things, you will find that the people are generally being related with wine. Excess of wine, excess of merrymaking, excess of, what should I say, you know you are negating your conscious self, you're negating your present scenario, you're negating your present status, because when you are completely intoxicated with intaking a huge amount of wine and huge amount of alcohol, then what happens, you forget yourself. Yes, you forget your present status, you forget your position. Somehow during these festivals, you see that people cannot identify himself. What I'm trying to suggest here, the people forget in general their position, their hierarchy, their social status, and they can embrace one another. So the bottom is up. What happens, that it is the huge amount of alcohol, it is a huge amount of wine. It can make a king and a beggar to be standing side by side and embracing each other and dance in a particular sequence along with them. It is possible. So somehow from that particular kind of a festive orientation, a theory emerged, you see. And this particular theory is considered as the theory of carnivalesque. Carnivalesque is Carnivalesque, carnivalesque. This is a theory, you can Google it from, and ultimately you will get the basic impressions, what the theory is actually implying. This particular theory it was mentioned by Mikhail Bakhtin. Okay, his name is Bakhtin, Bakhtin, and the name of the theory is the theory of carnivalesque as it is being propounded by him. Mikhail Bakhtin was a Russian formalist. Okay, he was a person from Russia, and along with him there are multiple theories like, carnivalesque, and there is a kind of dialogism, and these kinds of terms have been incorporated with him. In this particular theory of carnivalesque, Mikhail Bakhtin is implicating towards a particular position or particular situation where people completely negates or erase the the superficial, differentiation between the upper strata of society and the lower strata of society. because what is trying to focus, what is trying to implicate, that during the festivals, that hierarchy, that particular differentiating line, it gets blurred and people get mixed with each other. Somehow this particular theory is very important here. Why? Because it is the theory of festivity. It is called the festive theory. And somehow you will find that in this particular play, there are ample provisions where this particular differentiations can be made to be possible. So what I'm trying to suggest here, that signifying or referring to the title of this text, we will find that what you will, it is not simply referring to that you may choose any title what you will. Rather, it is implicating to this particular form, to this particular theory, that you can do what you will, because it is the 12th night, because it is the festival, because it is the epiphanic festival, where excess of wine and excess of merrymaking can cause the blurring of the differentiating lines, you see. Okay, the bifurcating lines, the differentiating line, it gets blurred, obviously. So you can do what you will. So therefore, the term what you will, that is the alternative title of this text, it can also implicate to the theory of festivity, and this particular theory has to be related with Mikhail Bakhtin, just I'm suggesting just now. Another question is, so far as the text is concerned, how so far we can relate this particular theory to the text? It's an obvious question that may arouse within your mind. Uh, Let us think about the group of characters. Okay, I'm taking the first page of the text, that is the dramatis persona. Here you will find that in this particular text there are one, two, and three. Yes, obviously there are three particular range of characters to be introduced. The first group of characters are belonging to the upper strata of society. They are the owners of the household. They are the persons who are coming from the upper part of the society, and therefore you will get the characters like Orsino, that is the Duke of Illyria. There is Olivia, a countess. Okay, and along with these two, there you can get Viola, who is disguised as Cesario because she is coming from the upper section of society, but ultimately she has lost her brother. There is the Sebastian, there is a twin brother. There is the reference to uh, Valentine Curio. There is the gentleman attending to the Duke. The officers are there, who are the service people, or the people who are under the service of Duke. And these are a group of characters, you see. So in the first provision, you will find the persons who are belonging to the upper strata of society. They are the persons who are belonging to the upper section. These are the aristocrats, represented by Viola and obviously Sebastian. But ultimately, these are in a different position at this moment. And there is Olivia and there is Duke Orsino, to be specific. Now, you will get at the very second section, there are people who are belonging to the upper household of these people. So that's why you will find the characters like Valentine and Curio. There are the characters like Sir Toby Belch, obviously. He is belonging to the not to the directly to the upper section of the society, but they were related to the upper section of the society. And there are the other persons who are not directly related to the society, rather uh, they are not the representatives of the society, rather they are related to the society. Okay, that is the upper section of the society. There is another person who is completely different from these characters, and that is clown, that is Feste, who is coming from the lower section of the society, and Feste is deliberately choosing to become, he is always in want of money. Why? Because he has to pass his livelihood. He has to earn his livelihood through by selling his art. It is the same, that Shakespeare did. Okay, he had to sell his art, that is writing drama and performing, just to earn his livelihood in his living life. So somehow what I'm trying to suggest here, there are three groups of characters. The first group, they are belonging to the upper strata of society. The second group, who are either or, they are related to the society, related to, okay, because they are working in the household of these personages. And the third person, that is clown or feste, who is coming from the lower strata of society, but somehow he has to earn his livelihood by selling his art. Now, it is so far as the financial basis is concerned, we can find the three types of differentiations within these characters. Now, fundamentally, when we think of, so far as their temperaments are concerned, we will find that somehow there is a kind of an antithesis has been created between the group of characters like Sir Toby Bell, Sir Andrew Ogchick. Okay, there is Fabian, Clown, Maria. Yes, to be specific. And another side, there is Malvolio. Very important character, I have to discuss about three main characters. I will come to this later. Number one, it is Malvolio. Number two, it is Feste. And number three, it's Viola. These three characters are very important so far as this text is concerned. I have to tell you about them. So, at the very onset, what I'm trying to suggest here that Malvolio has to be placed in a different way. Why? Because whereas other characters like Maria, Toby Belch, Andrew Ogchick, okay, these are the characters who are being referred in this particular text as characters belonging to the merriment. And Malvolio is a character who is against such kind of joyous enterprises, joyance or merriment or mirth or songs or merrymaking, anything. Okay, intoxication or excess of say wine or alcohol, etc. Think about Sir Toby Belch. Okay, the name actually it signifies the character of this person. It's Toby Belch. The term belch. The character belches. Why? Because it is the excess of intaking wine and intaking alcohol that makes you belch, you know, recurrently. So Sir Toby Belch is a drunk. He is a drunk personality, right? He drinks more, and somehow at the very beginning, when Sir Toby Belch has been introduced to the text, introduced to the play, you will find that Toby was seen to be lying at the foothold. Okay, lying at the there is a light, and Toby Belch was sitting there, almost completely intoxicated. He's out, and Maria discovers Toby was just lying there because it is the intoxication that made him to be dwelling in such a way. So from that very opening section towards the end of the play, we will find that whenever Sir Toby, Maria, Andrew Ogchick, okay, these were introduced, these were referred, you will find that there is the reference of, intaking of wine, intaking of alcohol, excess of alcoholism, and mirth and jollity, music, and these are happening continuously. Why? Because it is a festive comedy. What I'm trying to suggest here, repeatedly I'm mentioning that it's a festive comedy, a comedy that was made for festivity, a comedy that was structured for festival. And Shakespeare is deliberately referring that mirth and jollity. He's deliberately referring to that. Yes. And another character, there is a single character who's opposing them. And who is this man? Malvolio. Malvolio, there is a particular line where Sir Toby Bell says that what do you think that you were virtuous, that thou wert virtuous, that there must not be any kind of cakes and ales. That what do you think that you were virtuous? Again, you will find that in this particular text, there is a particular reference of Malvolio, who is opposing these personalities in general. I will come to that later. The gulling of Malvolio section and how he was gulled, and what does it implicate regarding Puritanism, regarding the opposition between the people, the Elizabethan and Jacobean people, and the Puritans, and how this topical association is related to the history, The historical part is also altogether being present. I will discuss them when I will deal with Malvolio and the Gulling of Malvolio section. Obviously, this is very important. But what I'm trying to suggest here is that in the text you will find somehow that Malvolio, who is considered as quote unquote sick of self-love, as Lady Olivia proposes him to be, that he is seeking of self-love. He loves himself too much, and Malvolio considers. I suppose you have. I think that you have gone to the text and you have the knowledge about the storyline of this text. So I'm not going to that in further detailing. In the text, we find that Malvolio is considering himself to be at a position where uh, Olivia can propose him regarding the choosing of the life partner. Malvolio thinks that. And somehow there lies the particular problem following which he was duped by the group of characters like Sir Toby Belch and Rockchick and Fabian Clown, that is Feisty and others, Maria. Somehow, my question is what makes Malvolio think that he can be a suitable match to Lady Olivia? Is it referring to a particular social consideration? Or is it referring to the festive abuse, you see? That it is the theory of festivity, as I've already mentioned, that it is implicating that somehow during the festival you can do what you will. That means the social hierarchization, the hierarchical differentiation, it gets blurred, and somehow you can think that I can be related with a person who might not be belonging to my status. Is it not implicating them? Yes, it is. So, from that particular section, we can say that the title of the play, Twelfth Night, it is true that it is referring to the commemorating the 12th night, that is 6th of January, when it was for the first time performed, and it is celebrating the Epiphanic festival. But the alternative title can imply anything better or anything something else. That it may signify that number one, you can assume any particular title what you will, and it can also implicate towards the festive theories somehow. It is also important. So this is the first section of this lecture. Now I have to think about Malvolio because he is very much related with this particular section. What happens, that in this particular text, Malvolio is he's standing differently. Yes, Malvolio, whereas the other characters, they are related with some positive traits, or maybe they are related with the mirth and jollity. They are completely attached with the situations. It's a kind of a festival, and each and every character, to some extent, they are directly or indirectly related to the festive temperament of this text, except Malvolio. What happens, in the text? I'm just making the references. In the text, we find that during a night when Maria, Satobi Belch, Andrew Ockchick, Clown, they were engaged in mirth and jollity, mirth and merrymaking. Malvolio, who is the steward of this family or of this household, he can hear to the music that is coming at the dead of night, and Malvolio chooses to enter to the very room where they were engaged. These characters were engaged in mirth and jollity. Malvolio moved there, and there was a hot talk, a kind of an exchange, verbal exchange was there in between them. And at the very moment, we find that Maria, she schemes a plot. And what is the plot? We find that Maria writes a letter. This is a very interesting section. I have to read from the text. It is Act 2, Scene 5, line number 23 onwards. That is Malvolio, who is coming from his household, and he is just loitering in the garden. Enter Malvolio. Act 2, Scene 5, line number 23. Enter Malvolio. Malvolio says, "It is but fortune. All is fortune. Maria once told me she, that is Olivia, did affect me, and I have heard herself come thus near. That should she fancy. It should be one of my complexion. That means it might be possible that Olivia is in love with me. What is the reason? It is just because of my complexion. Besides, she uses me with a more exalted respect than anyone else that follows her. What should I think on it?" Satobi is, and this is a particular place where Satobi and Andrew of Cheek and other characters, they are just hiding themselves behind the box trees of the garden, and there are multiple lines. I'm just uh, avoiding their words, and I'm continuing with the Malvolio speech. So, what should I think on it? To be Count Malvolio. There is example for it. So, what should I think about myself? I will become a Count Malvolio. There are examples. There are examples enough about these kinds of things. So there is example for it. The lady of the statue married the yeoman of the wardrobe. That means the person who is in charge of garments. Having been 3 months, and the Malvolio is, it's kind of a daydream. It's continuing. Malvolio says, having been 3 months married to her, so he's thinking that already Olivia has married her. So having been 3 months married to her, sitting in my state, calling my officers about me, in my branched velvet gown, having come from a daybed where I have left Olivia sleeping, and then to have the humor of state, and after demure travel of rigor, telling them I know my place. So he's thinking that somehow Satobi, in the previous encounter, what I mentioned just now, Satobi asked Malvolio that what you are thinking about yourself. Do you know who you are you? You are nothing but a person who is related to any kind of duties and any kind of, are you but nothing but a servant? And Satobi, she's the uncle of Lady Olivia. So now he's answering. He says, then to have the humor of state, and after a demure travel of rigor, telling them I know my place, as I would they should do years, to ask for my kinsman Toby. 7 of my people with an obedient start make out for him. So he was in search of Toby. I frowned a while, so when he was alone in the court, he will do what will do. I frown a while, and perchance wind up my words, or play with my some rich jewels. Toby approaches, curses there to me. I extend my hand to him thus, quenching my familiar smile, the austere rigor of control, saying, "Cousin Toby, my fortunes having cursed me on your knees, give me the prerogative of speech." That means I am already married to your niece, that is Lady Olivia. So I have got the prerogative of speech, so I can tell you. You must amend your drunkenness. That means you have to make a check regarding your drunkenness and so. Besides, you waste a treasure of your time with a foolish knight, one Sir Andrew. And then, when he was thinking about them, when thinking that he is in meeting with these personalities, he sees the letter. There was a letter which was written by Maria. And seeing the letter, Malvolio says, "What employment have we here?" So he takes the letter, taking up the letter, and then he reads. What happens, that Maria has written this particular letter by assuming the handwriting of Lady Olivia. And he takes the letter and says, "By my life, this is my lady's hand." That means it is the handwriting of Lady Olivia. He can identify. "These be her very C's." So the C, her U's and her T's, and thus make she her great P's. So these are somehow some vulgar tongue, great P's. You can identify what it means. "It is in contempt of question her hands." And Malvolio reads, in the letter there was written to the on this particular letter it was written, to the unknown beloved, these and my good wishes. And Malvolio thinks, oh, her very phrases. By your leave, walks. So it was the walks that is being there. Soft. And the impression her Lucrece, this is the official seal with which Lady Olivia seals her envelopes. There was a photo of Lucrece, as a stamp of Lucrece, with which she uses to seal, it's my lady. But to whom should this be? And he opens the letter. Malvolio reads, Job knows I love, but who? Lips do not move. No man must know. And then he thinks, no man must know. What follows? The numbers alter. No man must know. If this should be the Malvolio. And then he reads, I may command where I adore. That means the person whom I love, I command him. That means he is my diminutive post. So I may command where I adore, but silence, like a Lucrece knife, with bloodless stroke my heart doth gore. Moai doth sway my life. Moai. And he is thinking, Moai doth sway my life. Nay, but first, let me see. And then continues, I may command where I adore. Okay. Why, she may command me. I serve her. She is my lady. Why, this is evident to any formal capacity. There is no obstruction in this. There is no obscurity. And the end, what should that alphabetical position portend? If I could make that resemble something in me softly, M-O-A-I, Malvolio, M-O. Why, that begins my name, M. But then there is no consonancy. So if there is a Malvolio, then there must come L. But it doesn't come. He says M, but then there is no consonancy in the sequel. That suffers under probation. A should follow because it is Malvolio, M-A. But O does. And then I comes behind. M-O-A-I. Oh, this simulation is not as a former. And yet to cross this a little, it would go to me. For every one of these letters are in my name. Soft. Here follows prose. And he reads, if this letter fall into the hand, revolve. In my stars am above thee. So far as the fortune is concerned, I am above thee. But be not afraid of greatness. Why? Because the famous lines, some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thirst upon them. That means some persons who are born great, some persons they achieve greatness towards his life, and some have greatness thrust upon them. Thy fates open their hands. Let thy blood and spirit embrace them. So you have got the opportunity, right? So thy fates open their hands. Let thy blood and spirit embrace them. And to inure thyself to what thou wert like to be. Cast thy humble slough and appear fresh. Be opposite with a kinsman. Here the kinsman is Octavia. Surly with servants. That means behave harsh to the servants. Let thy tongue tang arguments of state. So always think about and speak about the stately affairs. Put thyself into the trick of singularity. So you are a singular person. You are completely different from others. She thus advises thee that sighs for thee. So think about them. That I am advising you and I have sighs for you. S-I-G-H-S. Remember who commended the yellow stockings and wished to see thee ever cross gutter. So these are the fashion uses. Yellow stockings up to the knee and cross girder. It should be bound with the cross girdering form. Remember who commended the yellow stockings and wished to see thee ever cross gutter. I said, remember, go to. Thou art made, if thou desires to be so. If not, let me see thee a steward still. So Malvolio is the steward. So here is properly mentioned. The fellow of servants, and not would thee to touch fortune's fingers. Farewell. she that would alter service with thee, the fortunate unhappy. And this is the letter. And after reading this particular letter, Malvolio says, it is daylight and champagne discovers not more. This open. I will be proud. I will read politic authors. I will baffle Satobi. I will wash up gross acquaintance. I will point devise the very man what it proposes to be. I do not now fool myself to let imagination jade me. For every reason excites to this, that my lady loves me. So Malvolio is over sanguine that the lady, that is Lady Olivia, loves him. She did comment my yellow stockings of late. She did praise my leg being cross-gartered, and in this way she manifests herself to his love, and with a kind of injunction drives me to these habits of liking. I thank my stars. I am happy. I will be strange, stout, in yellow stockings, cross-gartered, even with the sweetness of putting on. Jove and my stars be praised. Here is a postscript. So there is a postscript that is written. What it writes: Thou canst not choose but know who I am. If thou entertainst my love, let it appear in thy smiling. Thy smiles become thee well. Therefore, in my presence still smile. Dear my sweet, I pray thee. Jove, I thank thee. I will smile. I will do everything that thou wilt have me. So this is the letter. So after reading to this letter, as I mentioned, just this particular letter, it was kind of a device. This particular device has been created by Maria. Why? Because Malvolio is sick of self-love. Malvolio considers himself to be appropriate for Lady Olivia's husband, for becoming Lady Olivia's husband. And this particular letter makes Malvolio to think that it can be possible that he can become the count. Right? And afterwards, we will find that Malvolio will come smiling. Lady Olivia's brother has died just few days before. And Lady Olivia is now at a very sad condition at this moment. He's under darkness at this moment. What will happen next to her? And in that very moment, Malvolio will come smiling, and he's always smiling. You see, it's a kind of a madness that is being ascribed in his smile. Somehow, another thing that is the yellow stockings and cross-girded, all these two things. It is the that Lady Olivia detests mostly. Okay, so in that particular condition, Malvolio considers that Lady Olivia is his love. Okay, and when he comes to Lady Olivia considers Malvolio that probably Malvolio is got insane. Malvolio is got to some extent he is not well. That means he is suffering from any kind of sickness. And Malvolio thinks it considers it differently. Lady Olivia says that will you go to sleep, Malvolio? And Malvolio considers that is kind of a summoning to sexual consummation and so. And Malvolio behaves accordingly, you see. So somehow at this very moment, Maria calls Lady Olivia and says this Malvolio is possessed by a ghost. Okay, and what happens, that afterwards we will find that Malvolio was locked under the closet. That means it was a kind of a room or the storeroom type of position. And later on, we will find that through the help of Feste, Malvolio, towards the end of the play, we will find that Malvolio writes a letter, and in that particular letter, Malvolio writes everything, what happens to him. And somehow Lady Olivia could identify that, okay, what I have done to Malvolio, what I have thought about Malvolio, it is completely wrong. So it is a kind of a, he is more sinned against than sinning. That means he was not a very so bad person that I have behaved in a different way, in a wrong way to Malvolio. Towards the end of the play, we find that Malvolio, at the end of the play, towards the end of the play, Malvolio speaks in front of the gang, the persons like Duke or there is Maria and Satobi, etc., etc., and Clown, that's Feste. He says, I will be revenged on the whole pack of you. That means I will take revenge against all you who have, done all these things. So in this particular Gulling section, there is also another section where you can get that Feste is behaving like Satopus. He is coming to Malvolio, and ultimately he's duping Malvolio in a different way. He's considering Malvolio to be mad. He's considering Malvolio to be possessed by any particular kind of a ghost, and so behaved in this way. So throughout the section, it is called considered to be the alternative plot of the play. If you think about the main plot of the play is dealing with the love affair that is going on between uh, there is Olivia and Viola and Duke Orsino and Sebastian. Ultimately, you will find that somehow, along with the main plot of the play, there runs the alternative plot where you can get Malvolio has been duped throughout the play. Okay, because at the opening section or the beginning section, we will find that Malvolio is considering himself to be superior among these people, and he is behaving rudely, whether against Feste or against this group of personages you see. Okay, and they are taking revenge against him. Now, this particular gulling of Malvolio, this is very important to this particular text because it has its topical association. Actually, what I'm trying to suggest here that Malvolio, as I've already mentioned, that Malvolio is being considered as the Puritan. You know what is Puritan? I have mentioned about it when I was discussing about in the introduction section. Puritanism is has to be treated as something that is completely negating the basic atmosphere of the play. Yes, it is Twelfth Night, it is festive comedy, there is mirth and jollity everywhere. And think about the people who are just assembling in front of the stage, you see. And they are also being engaged in this particular kind of mirth and jollity because it is the Epiphany festival when this particular performance is going on. And somehow, so far as the political discourses is concerned, so far as the political strifes are concerned, Puritans are those personalities who are against such kind of mirth and jollity, against such kind of merriment, who are against such kind of temperamental aspects, you see. And in the future, you will find that the Puritans will come to the forefront with Oliver Cromwell and others, in 1649, when Charles I was going to be beheaded, and ultimately the Puritan regime in the name of Commonwealth will come to England. Now, fundamentally, the critique of Puritanism or negating Puritanism was one of the important aspects of the society when Shakespeare wrote this particular play. And Shakespeare incorporated that particular kind of a trend and tendency that is going on within the society in the form of this play. Right? So the Gulling of Malvolio, as I've already mentioned, it is more sinned against than sinning. It's a line that is taken from King Lear. He is more sinned against than sinning. That means he was not such a sinner that he has been made by the other people. Right? So you will find that Malvolio, yes, Malvolio is suffering from a particular kind of a mental crisis ultimately. He is thinking about him highly, and he's an ambitious personality. Okay, we could think that I can marry Lady Olivia. Right, it's true. But at the same time, you will find that throughout the play, a group of personalities who are associated with this mirth and merrymaking, they are duping Malvolio, they are negating Malvolio, they are gulling Malvolio. It's the gulling of Malvolio that is I'm coming to explain. Gulling of Malvolio, it is obviously an important aspect of the play. Rather, it is signifying an alternative, plot construction that is called also it's can be considered as the subplot of the play. But at the same time, you will find that the Gulling of Malvolio is sharing a topical association. That is the clash between the progressive thinkers or the persons who are engaged in mirth and jollity and mirth and merrymaking against the Puritans. Okay, so it is a kind of a critique of Puritanism. Okay, or negating Puritanism to be general. That is, Puritanism has to be negated by them, and that is actually happening there. So Gulling of Malvolio not only to be discussed in terms of the play, rather Gulling of Malvolio, this particular section, is to be considered as uh, a section that is related with the contemporary political scenario, contemporary politics and contemporary situations to be general. And another thing that I have already mentioned, that Gulling of Malvolio, or the position of Malvolio, Malvolio's thoughts, Malvolio's orientations, what Malvolio is thinking at this moment, Malvolio's situations, and so these have to be related with the festive theory. that is carnivalist, that he could think that yes, I am capable of marrying or being married to Lady Olivia. Okay, and it also implicates the basic essence, the basic essence with the festival, with the carnivalesque and so. So this critique of Puritanism has to be considered as a very important aspect of this particular play. Okay, so what we are reading, it's a comedy, obviously, but somehow, along with the comic aspects, there is something tragic. Think about Malvolio, what he finds at the end of the play. He has to leave everyone, you see. He has to go outside from his comfort zone, that is his household where he was working through these years. And ultimately, he has to leave these personalities, leave his position, leave his profession, leave his existence to some extent. So it's a kind of a crisis that had been exposed in this particular play. So somehow the gulling of Malvolio section, it creates the comic essences of the play. Okay, there is something tragic in him. There is something tragic in his presentation. There is something tragic in his outcome, obviously. So such are the things that are very much needed. So fundamentally, to sum up this particular lecture, in the very beginning, we have discussed about the title and the subtitle. That is the alternative title, obviously. That is 12th night, what it signifies, why these are named in this way, and what you will, what it implicates with the concerning with the concern to the opening to the readers regarding the naming of the play, and also to the theory of festivity along with Bakhtinian carnivalist theory and so. And towards the end of this particular lecture, we have discussed about Malvolio, his position, in which way he was gulled, the reference to the textual reference to the letter, and in the latter way, how he has been dealt with by these personalities, the group of personalities. Okay, and somehow this particular theory is linked, or his gulling is linked with the topical references, historical references, and the reference to the Puritanism, as Malvolio is considered as more sinned against than sinning. Okay, these are the things that have been discussed in this particular lecture. So go through the sections, go through the text, and get the situations what Malvolio is creating, why he is against uh, Satobi and Maria and Fabian and others, and why he is against uh, the characters like Feste, why Feste is helping Maria and Satobi in this particular scheming and plotting. You know, Toby was so much annoyed with Malvolio. That's why that after this particular situation, we find that Satobi and Maria, they get married. Okay, and Satobi and Maria, they left this particular household and moved away. So, what are the reasons and how these are happening in this particular play? It is for you, it is up to you to read the text carefully and find and make the references, read the letter and make the references, and try to memorize them and write your answer on this particular thing. So, there are two topics that have been covered. One, that is the title and alternative title of this text and its significance, and second, Malvolio and the gunning of Malvolio and its association with the topical references and the historical perspectives of this play. So today up to this, thank you.